Hello there, everyone. Hello, and welcome back to the Showing Up to Your Life podcast and YouTube channel. It's Friday. I'm so excited to be here with you, and we got a lot to cover. So I'm going to just jump right in, okay? Because like I said, there is a lot to cover in today's episode, which is really kind of part two of yesterday's episode. Yesterday, we talked about the 3 negative mental states, which will always result in negative emotions. This is the place where negative emotions grow. This is the farmland for our negative emotions. And so when we talked about these 3 negative mental states, the states of grasping or clinging, aversion or hatred, and delusion or ignorance, these are the 3 mental states that when we find ourselves in any one or any combination of these 3 mental states, again, what we're going to do is we're going to feel negative emotions. And as you remember, or maybe you don't remember, that's why I'm going to tell you again, that when we are in the negative end of the emotional spectrum, right? It's kind of like a timeline, like a number line, right? When you were a kid, when you learned about negative and positive numbers, right? There was 0 in the middle, and then you went up to positive 10 and then down to negative 10, right? So negative 10 is not a bad number, right? It's just a less than 0 number. Right? It just represents something that is a reality, right? And so the same thing is true for your emotions. I want you to make sure that you understand that it's not about disliking our negative emotions, but the result of negative emotions are what causes us difficulty, because the negative emotions, as I started to say a minute ago, everything on that negative side of the emotions from 0 down, right? If we're looking at an emotional number line, everything that's to the left of 0 there is going to be rooted in fear. And any time that we are rooted in fear, our body is going to go into the stress response. So this is not something, again, it's not something to shun the negative emotions, but when we start to experience stress, that is going to have a direct and adverse impact on our lives, right? We're not thinking straight. We're not making decisions from a healthy place. We're not engaged in life in the same way as we are when we're not feeling stress. So again, it's not about ignoring the emotion of fear, but it's about processing that emotion of fear so that we don't encounter that stress. Okay, so the more that we understand about this process, the more opportunity, the more capacity we have to actually affect change and to make it, to kind of, harness the negative emotions that we're feeling so that we can learn from them. Okay, so again, and knowing where those emotions come from is the key, right? As we said yesterday, it's like, to try to just cheer yourself up in the face of a negative emotion, right? To tell yourself, just don't be afraid, just, get over it, any of this stuff, right? All that's doing is treating a symptom. So if you're sick and you just treat the symptoms, then the illness doesn't go anywhere, and it will tend to actually get more and more powerful and more damaging. And the same thing will happen to your emotions. So really, it's not about telling ourselves, don't be afraid, don't be angry, don't be, guilty or shameful or ashamed or anything like that. It's more about allowing the emotions to happen, but address that root of the emotion, right? Address where the emotion is coming from, which is these 3 negative mental states of grasping or clinging, aversion or hatred, and ignorance or delusion. Now, if you talk to Western psychologists, right, and pediatricians and everyone in the sort of medical, mental health field in the West, they're going to tell you that we are all born with certain predispositions as far as our personality is concerned. And now in the West, they would call that genetic predispositions. Yeah. So you are more likely to be like your mother and your father and your grandparents and all that. Yeah. So in the East, in philosophies like Buddhism and Hinduism and Taoism and things like this, they would call it something more like karma, right? Or not something like karma, they would call that karma, right? So what we consider in the West genetic predispositions, people in the East would call karmic results. Okay? And so so there is a part of your personality that is built in. Well, the day you were born, you had a certain predisposition to your type of personality. But that's only part of the picture. In fact, most of your personality, or at least a good part of your personality, is formed by what happens to you, especially in the early parts of your the early years of your life. Generally speaking, between the age of birth and 7 years old is what they say. That is the time where you are basically programming yourself, and you're programming yourself, or you're being programmed. It's not really an active process; it's more of a passive process. And you're being programmed by the actions of those around you. You're being programmed by the way people treat you, the way that you see people treat each other, especially people like your parents, who are the ones who you trust and you model yourself after. Okay, and you're also going to, your personality is also going to be formed by the teachers that you have, the coaches that you have, the friends that you have. All of this is going to feed into your personality. Now, in the philosophy of, where the philosophy where all of this work comes from, this mindfulness and heartfulness work comes from, right? The understanding is that the personality that you become is going to kind of mirror a little bit some of these three negative mental states, and it's because, if you have people around you who are particularly grasping or clinging, yeah, like when you are, let's say your parents are a certain way, they have a dominant quality of one of those three negative mental states, yeah, then you are going to develop that as a personality. It's going to happen slowly. It's going to happen over many, many years. And it's not just your parents. It's all of that stuff. It's the school. It's the friends. It's the other parents. It's the teachers. It's the coaches. It's the people that you see interacting in front of you. If you're in an area where, one of those three are more dominant, then that is the personality that you are going to gravitate towards. And then once you start gravitating towards, it's like a snowball, right? As you start pushing it and you start going with that, it's going to become stronger and stronger and stronger. So what I'm saying here is that if you had parents who were particularly aversive, for instance, then you are going to have that aversive, influence in your life, and then you're going to become a little bit more aversive. And then as you experience life, that aversion and that aversiveness is going to be reinforced, and it's going to grow and grow to the point where it becomes your personality. Now, here's the good news. I told you this yesterday. I will tell you this every single time. Okay, all of what we're talking about is based on the fact that nothing is permanent, and the truth is that in fact there are people who I've read about who are in their 90s, like 92, 94 years old, and they've taken on this work and they have transformed themselves. So please do not listen to this thinking like, oh my gosh, I'm this aversive personality, this is going to be terrible for the rest of my life. What am I going to do? It is something that is it's not hard to transform it, and I'm going to give you some ideas on how to do that, or some tips on how to do that right now in the next couple of minutes, okay? But first, let's talk about what these personalities look like. All right, so again, we talked about the negative mental states, but again, these things can go from a state to a trait. Okay, and when they become a personality trait, they're going to have certain, an embodiment or a certain sort of look about them. So we're going to go over that right now. Okay, I'm going to put on my glasses here, this is the weirdest thing. When I put on my glasses with this camera, for some reason they look so crooked. Like I just went and looked in the mirror, and it's like my glasses are not this crooked. So it must be something with the wide angle nature of this camera that's making me look like I'm like if I move my head over there, they start to straighten out. But anyway, pardon me. I'm not self-conscious with it. I'm just letting you know that I don't have these crooked glasses. All right, so let's cover, and we're going to go over each of these personality types or personality traits that are based again on these negative mental states, and in the end, I'm going to give you what they look like right on their face value, and I'm going to give you some ideas on how you can sort of transform your personality type into, kind of using what it is and transforming that into something that's more, beneficial for you and to provide a more balanced and healthy lifestyle for yourself. And then in the end, I'm going to give you a really very simple 3-step quiz that you can use to determine what personality type you are, or your dominant personality type, because that's the thing also, is that these are all just, we're talking about dominance, right? And it's the same way with the negative mental states. It's not that you're always just going to feel, or experience one of these negative mental states. In most times, you're going to experience all three, all at the same time. And so, but one is likely to be more dominant. So that's what we're talking about here, okay? So that's the key word here, is the dominance, okay? So, not everyone is going to fit this, each one of these things exactly, but one of these is going to probably sound a little bit more resonant for you. And that is going to be a good indication that is your dominant personality type. But then on top of that, I'm going to give you this quiz that you can do very simply. It's something you don't have to do with anybody else. You can just do it for yourself. And it's going to help you to understand this. And because it is in the understanding that we can change. The understanding and the acceptance. That's what leads to our ability to transform ourselves and to change ourselves into, to create a self and create a life that is more harmonious and more happy and more constructive and more loving and more healthy. Okay, so let's go through this. So the first personality type I'm going to start with is grasping, otherwise known as clinging. Okay, otherwise known as greed. Okay, and so the personality type of grasping or greed or clinging is based in desire, like almost an insatiable desire. Okay, this is something that could be called an addictive personality. Okay. The craving is going to be something very, common. There's this constant desire, craving, hunger, if you will. People who are a grasping personality are going to be very passionate, and they're going to have a high level of sensuality. Which, again, these things are not all negative qualities or bad qualities, but this is just what it is. It's the case. Like people who have this grasping personality, they are likely to be more sensual people. Physically, they're actually likely to have a confident posture, to walk with an elegance and maybe a spring in their step. Okay, they're confident. They're looking to go out and grab things. Yeah, they're barreling into a room and they're saying, I'm here and I'm here and you're lucky I'm here, that kind of thing. Yeah. And driving, ironically, like in the modern, context, these people would have a graceful, relaxed, easy attention to driving. Right? They're not aversive to driving. They're not angry at other drivers. They're just kind of, they're paying attention in sort of a confident way. Okay? So that's the grasping personality. The aversive personality, step number 2 here. Aversive personality is based in judgments of others and judgments of their experiences. Someone who has an aversive personality is likely to be much more critical, argumentative, even belittling of others. Okay, so if you find yourself getting into arguments and saying like, oh, that person, you find the flaws in people and you kind of, break them down a little bit, well, that's an aversive personality, okay? There's also going to be a lot of anger and vindictiveness in an aversive personality. You might feel, hatred even, right? Like that level of emotion is going to be part of the aversive personality, as well as cruelty, aggression, the need to be in control of something, right? Like not being in control really bothers you if you're an aversive personality, which, by the way, hello, I'm an aversive personality. At least I used to be before I transformed myself. So a person who's aversive, physically, is going to have a tendency to walk quickly and like hard and like, not confidently, but like quick, like feeling like you're late for something all the time, right? Like that's how I used to feel all the time. And driving, and this definitely resonates with me, you're going to be an aggressive driver if you're an aversive personality. You're going to become impatient and annoyed with other drivers. I told you that used to be one of my pet peeves, yeah? You're going to, you're likely to engage in the road rage, and that's... Sorry if that's what you're feeling, because I know how it feels and it's not fun. But again, remember, we're telling you this because there is the not even just the hope, but there is a very simple and straightforward way to change these things about yourself. Okay, so don't lose hope for me. Okay, now finally, the deluded. That's the word that I'm looking for. The deluded personality is that personality is really centered around an uncertainty and a confusion in a lot of situations. If you're a deluded personality, you're someone who has a hard time making decisions and relating to the world around you. You feel like I don't know, I don't fit. I don't, it doesn't feel right somehow. Yeah. You're gonna tend to avoid or ignore problems. Okay, you're just going to abandon them. Yeah, I don't want to deal with that. Yeah, which sounds a little aversive too, but it's a little different. Worry, doubt, scattered thoughts, anxiety, agitation. These are all going to be qualities of a deluded personality. You're going to walk with hesitant strides, almost like shuffling along, like not sure. Should I be walking? Should I not be walking? Like, where am I? Like, should I go into that store or not? I don't want to go into that store. I don't know if I want that. So I'm just going to go get a cup of coffee. You know what? I want coffee. Maybe I'll have tea. I don't really feel like that. And that's the kind of, deluded personalities that kind of feels like they're never getting anywhere. They're just kind of walking in circles or walking in place in a way, like on a treadmill. Yeah. The drivers who are deluded, they're going to be inattentive drivers. They're going to be kind of drifting over the road and meandering through traffic. And quite frankly, I would think that aversive drivers are maybe scary, but I think deluded drivers might be a little bit more dangerous. So, a lot of times when I'm going through this, right, and those are the three personality types, and probably as you're hearing me describe these things, there was some of that resonated with you. Now, again, please remember that we're talking about dominance, right? Because you might find that some of your personality has the delusion in it, some has the aversion, some has the greed, but one of them probably is stronger than the others. And so it can be hard to face that sometimes because these are not flattering, this is not the flattering part of your personality, right? But remember, this is not also the entirety of your personality, right? You also have compassion, you have kindness, you have all kinds of things that exist outside of these, right? This is just more like the way that you kind of walk through the world, yeah, in a dominant way again, right? And so the key then becomes, as we talk about here in this podcast all the time, the key becomes to accept with presence and with curiosity. And with some self-compassion, accept this dominant personality that you have. Because in that acceptance and in that curious look at it, in the ability to be present with it without feeling, judging of yourself and without feeling uncomfortable about it, right? It is that allows you to make the change and to again, become the person that you want to become, right? To become the person that is happy and comfortable, right? Comfortable in this world. So it's, again, oops, sorry. It's very important to to release that judgment or any shame that you might be feeling, because it's in that judgment and that shame that's going to prevent you from changing this. Okay? So now, if we talk about these three personality types and we think about how to change them, right? It's not so much. I mean, it's kind of, you're going to do the opposite, right? Like, that's the obvious way to look at it, right? If I'm aversive, I should be more accepting. If I'm deluded, I should be more understanding. I should just look and try to understand what's going on. I should be more curious, right? More aware, right? And if I'm grasping, then I should be more accommodating, let things go, right? And that's true, right? But it's also important to kind of, like remember that the grasping personality, it's there's a lot of desire there. There's a lot of sensuality there, right? So maybe that's something that, if you look at the strength of that, well, that would be, the ability to decorate a house really well, or to be able to see the beauty in things that others might not see. That's your strength in this negative personality type. And for aversion, you might think of, transforming anger, which is a very powerful thing. And if that's something that comes naturally to you, well, then maybe you are someone who is more naturally assertive, right? You're someone who knows how to get what you want. And that's okay, right? That's a good thing to have. Right? So that's a positive aspect of this. So it's not like throwing the baby out with the bathwater here, right? And again, with delusion, you can transform that into curiosity and questioning, inquisitiveness. And believe me, if you know anybody who's naturally inquisitive, you probably respect that person. You probably find that they're pretty intelligent, and they're pretty, balanced, and they seem like they got their stuff together, right? And so again, it's not to say that you want to throw the baby out with the bathwater, but again, to acknowledge these aspects of our personality is something that's very helpful, because it gives us the understanding from which we can change. But remember, the key here is to accept the understanding. Right? If we're understanding something, but we're also judging it, or we're practicing aversion towards it, well, then we're not going to be able to change it. Okay, so here's the quiz. So you ready for this? Okay, so if you're not clear already, and maybe even if you are, you can still do this quiz. It's a kind of a fun sort of mental exercise here, right? A thought experiment, if you will. Okay, so there's going to be 3 different questions to this quiz. Okay, they're very simple. All right. The first one, I want you to imagine and pretend that you've been invited to a friend's new home. Your friend just got this new house, and she just decorated it, and she's really excited for you to see it, right? So imagine yourself in that position. Now, which one of these 3 things are you most likely to do as an instinctive kind of thing, right? Not after you've thought about it, but just instinctively, right? Do you immediately see all the things that you don't like about the house? Or, do you like notice the flaws, right? Do you notice I'm sorry, pardon me. No, that's the second one. Do you see all the things that you do like about it? Do you notice the things about beauty? When you first see this house, do you notice the beautiful color that she picked for the walls, and the way the furniture really goes with that? Do you sense that beauty in there, right? Or do you notice the flaws and notice the small kitchen and the way the couch seems too big for the room? Do you notice that kind of stuff? That's the second potential. And the third potential, do you imagine that you kind of arrived late and you're not really sure what to think of this whole thing, right? You kind of would rather not even do this. You'd rather just have a cup of coffee or something, right? So the first one would be the greed, right? The grasping personality, right? When you see just the things that are beautiful, right? You don't even notice the negatives. You just see the beautiful. That's a grasping personality. The noticing all the flaws is an aversive personality. And not even being sure, or not even wanting to really deal with it, that's the ignorance, the delusion, okay? Second Second question of the quiz, my students, is picture yourself now sitting down for a cup of tea with your friend, okay? And she tells you about some kind of hurtful, gossipy remark that somebody made about the company that you work for. Okay. And so at this point, when you hear that, what do? Do you try to soften the comment and kind of cast it in a more positive light? Right? Or do you get angry and defensive about it? Or do you kind of ignore it and just change the subject? Right? Again, grasping, aversion, delusion. Okay. Last question of this quiz. So now your friend tells you that she went on this amazing retreat, right? A meditation retreat or something like that, or a yoga retreat or something like that, that she came back and she just felt completely transformed, and she just felt so powerful about this experience. As she's telling you this story, okay, how are you reacting, right? Do you feel yourself getting inspired by her enthusiasm, right? Like I want some of that, right? Do you find yourself doubting whether she really had this experience or she's just playing it up? And is this is that really what happened? Or is it really are you fooling yourself? Yeah. Or do you become confused about it? Do you try to figure out how to fit in what she's telling you into your life and your spirituality and all that? Again, greed is the inspired, enthusiastic person who feeling that way about what this person's telling them. The aversive personality is doubting the veracity and doubting the real impact that this person's experiencing. And then finally, the delusion is just getting kind of confused about it and just not sure how to even understand how to fit that in with what you understand about yourself. Now, again, please remember and understand that we're not talking about, this is not some kind of life sentence, right? And this is not, and again, we're talking about dominance, right? So not everyone out there who's listening to this is going to say, okay, yes, I am a deluded personality, and that's that, right? You're probably going to feel some aspects of each one of these, all right? But above all, by simply paying attention to it and allowing for it, right? Accepting it and being compassionate about it, right? Remembering that it's not you. You didn't choose this. Okay, this is a process that has happened to you. It is a passive act. It is not an active, action. It is a passive action. And so remembering that allows us to disidentify with it. Remembering that it's not I'm going to take my crooked glasses off now, off my crooked face. We're not talking about, when we can apply curiosity and compassion towards it, right? We can disidentify with it. And once we disidentify with it, we're kind of looking at it almost from the outside of us. We're looking at it as just something that's there. It's just a part of the mechanism that makes us who we are. It doesn't. I shouldn't even say that. It's not the mechanism that makes us who we are. It's the mechanism of our body and our emotions and our mental activity. But it does not mean that that's who you are. Okay, your personality is not yourself, because the thing is that when you are alone and you are, come inside of yourself, you're none of these things. These things are only the things that are happening when you're interacting with the world out there. But the core essence of who you are has nothing to do with any of this. And that's why these things are immediately and easily transformable. Because it's not really who you are. It feels like it's who you are. And we tend to think that's who we are, but it's not. It does not define you as much as you feel that it does. And that's what makes it so changeable. Now, how do you change it? It just takes some work. It just takes setting the intention and just, gradually allowing it to happen through a moment-to-moment adjustment. Okay, so if you're trying to transform yourself from the personality trait that you're feeling and kind of playing to the strengths of that personality trait and transforming the negative aspects of it to the opposite, well, then what you do is you just set that intention.